Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Power Half Hour Unstoppable Business Owner. I'm your host, Dorothy O'Dell, for this evening, and I have the distinct pleasure of bringing Cheryl Cross to the stage. Welcome, Cheryl.
Aloha from Hawaii. Nice to be here. Thank you,
Aloha.
Dorothy.
Like,
Yes.
she's in the best place in the world ever. And I just have to say that that's one of the reasons. No, that's not one of the reasons why I brought her on. I brought you on, Cheryl, because I love the fact that you're a seasoned HR specialist with over 20 years of experience and a leading voice in military to civilian life. Like, wow, that just encompasses everything. You're an unstoppable overcomer. You help the military, and you're here in business. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, other than
Sure.
what I just shared.
No, my story is really interesting because it wasn't a straight path. You look at someone's career and you're like, it's never a straight line. It's always like squiggle, squiggle, hills and valleys. I actually started in broadcasting. So sitting behind a microphone, I was in the radio industry. I became a music director. That made me fall in love with the music industry. I wanted to go on the other side of it. And I spoke to some promoters. They moved me to Los Angeles. I worked for David Geffen and Geffen Records. That went on for about 4 years. I went to another label. I got a little burnout, I'll be honest with you, and I wanted to take a big detour. So I did. And I became an independent business owner. And that in my early 20s was really the first time I could call myself an entrepreneur. And I've gone into entrepreneurship off and on my career, but I am a passion driven, I love it. I am an unstoppable overcomer. I am driven by passion. I
Yes.
have an I know I have an interest-based nervous system. People always say, what is that? That's kind of an ADHD coined phrase. I am a neurodiverse woman. I speak very openly about it, very publicly. But when I learned how my dopamine is regulated in my brain, I figured out why my career looked the way it did and why I was a little, I guess people would say job hoppy. But I look at it as sort of building up. So I left the music industry, became an entrepreneur. I was an independent consultant. I learned HR through research. So this is an interesting story. I fell in love with the internet and I wanted to do everything on the internet. I was on the internet all the time. I learned through family members. There was a research opportunity working in financial markets. I became what's called a competitive intelligence analyst. So using the internet, we were scoping and trying to get information in new ways. And this was a legacy, old British owned company that had researchers sitting with, libraries of books behind them. So the internet was very new for them and using people. And they thought, well, this young person, of course, we always say this, the young people, they know that technology. I was young at the time. I'm not anymore. But I dove into this and I loved the research. I loved the report writing. A recruiting company learned about my work and I really wasn't working with them too much. As the internet grew, these teams became less and less, I'd say, valuable. There was a time period where competitive intelligence really took a nosedive because the internet was easier to obtain information through individual users. So I learned about recruiting and I fell in love with it. I was like, first off, recruiters got paid well. Well, a little bit more than the researchers did, I'll be honest with you. But I
Right.
was able to do both. And I was able to do the research and recruiting and connecting people to jobs. So that has always been the thread, I'd say, for the last 20 some odd years. Obviously, I have a 30-year work career, so there was 10 years prior to that. But I got to say, getting into the military space was not, I didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to become an advocate for military affiliated talent. I'm going to, stand on the rooftops and talk about underemployment and dislocated worker. No, I literally was handpicked for a position with a large defense contracting firm. I went as a contractor because I had my own business and I just fell in love with them. And when I was sort of exploring opportunities to maybe stay or work on another project, they said, "Hey, we have an opportunity in Hawaii." It's like, "Oh, really? We'd love for you
Let
go.
me go.
Yeah, right. When do you want me to go?" And they gave that job to me on my 50th birthday, which again, I think we have to talk about age. Everyone's like, "Oh my heavens, ageism." Well, I didn't, I was the reverse. So they offered me the job on my birthday, knowing it was my birthday, which was so cool. And that was April. By June, I had moved to Hawaii. And I've been here for 7 years. And even though I'm no longer with that company, who I love, I have just expanded and really gone bigger. I'm a Workforce Development Councilwoman. I continue to advocate for what I saw as deficits while I was hiring those transitioning military. And that's really what just to answer your question, that's what got me excited about being sort of a voice, because a lot of
Mhm.
recruiters don't come out, Dorothy, and they don't talk about this stuff. So,
Right. I absolutely love that. And so many of my veterans will say to me, I can't get a job, and I've had people on the show, a guy that was in the military, and then he took on a civilian job within the military to help people with jobs, and says like, and they say, well, there is resources there. They just maybe either don't tell them about it, or they don't know about it, or let's be real. When you get out of the military, sometimes they have a chip on their shoulder, and they're upset, and things like that, and they really don't even know where to look, right? And then I've seen both spectrums. I've seen the guys that come out, they're great and they're wonderful and everything's cherry. And I've seen some of the guys that no matter what you say, life is a dark cloud. So I love that you're doing this for them, because there are so many veterans out there that, like, daily, I've been looking for a job for 2 years, and I'm, I'm going to connect you with a guy named Ryan who has been looking faithfully. And I've connected him with headhunters and things like that. And he's gotten nowhere. So I pray to God that maybe you can help
well, thank
Ryan.
you. If not me, my community. I've grown my community since launching my podcast, which is the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. We launched last November, and I'm on hiatus now. I feel like Los Angeles television movie industry. We're on hiatus. I'm on a hiatus for the summer, but it's been so interesting to elevate the voices of 100 veterans just with the first series. And what I've learned is there's a lot going on. And I'm so grateful that I've taken a pause. As a recruiter, I assumed I knew what the problems were. Because I'm recruiting them, I'm sitting in the other seat. I'm sitting in a very judgmental seat. And I was able to write a guide to help them navigate that bridge, because it really is a bridge between a very structured career and predictive structured career environment, the military,
Right.
to a very organic, open, fungible one. So knowing what you want is half the battle. And
Mhm.
a lot of them didn't. They didn't know things, Dorothy, like where they wanted to live, what they enjoyed doing, much less what they wanted to do or were skilled at. The skills translation between an MOS and what a skill might be in the job in the civilian world could be. You could use
Right.
translators, you could use advocates, mentors, things like that. But it's not just automatic. It's not user friendly, right? And then there's predatory companies. There's 10,000 resources. It's overwhelming, right?
Mhm.
So I was kind of thinking of this idea, sort of, throwing it around to people I loved and trusted. And I reached out to a mentor who had done a behavioral based training for me with a group called the Behavioral Panel. They're very big on YouTube. I went to their training in Las Vegas, learned that one of them, a former Navy guy, had just taken everything he learned in the Navy and became highly successful. So I called him the poster boy. Like, you truly are what I want more people to see. You have taken what you learned in the military and you've created this incredible thing that is so unusual, but you're relying on the skills that you learned. Isn't that what we want, right? So in our talk, his name is Chase Hughes, and he wrote the foreword to my book. But he said, Cheryl, I think it's great that you're doing this for people, get them a year in advance, which is the traditional, like a year, 12 months, 180 days, right? He said, I wish I had them 3 years in advance. And that truly planted the seed for me to say, you know what? How might I create a guidebook using 3 years as a time frame? How much more value could they find within themselves if they took it a little at a time over a longer period of time? And as a coach and a counselor, I know you know this, so I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but it really was because I saw so many people truly just rounding the bend. Oh my gosh, I have 3 months left of military. Can you look at my resume and tell me, what should I do? Like, and I was a recruiter. I was a gatekeeper, a corporate recruiter for a big, big company. And I really wanted to make placements, but I really needed them to come to me with better skills and better interviewing, salary negotiation. So I decided to take some time off and write the book, and I did, and it's been a huge success. So thanks for asking. I know you're an author too, so you know how hard this is.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Once I sat down, it flowed out of me.
Oh,
So
okay. You're one of those.
I just like, well, God been on me for 5 years to write the book, and I said no, I didn't have
Mm,
time. So when COVID hit, oh
yeah.
well, now you don't have the drive, the hour to and from work. Now you have
Mm,
time to sit down and do this. I'm like,
smart.
well played, well played. So no,
Smart.
it's COVID. Don't put it on me, but you know, it happened. I just want to give a shout out here to Nessa. Nessa is her husband was actually in the Navy
Oh,
as
okay.
well. She
Yay.
is currently in Los Angeles, but is from Dallas, working with veterans herself. Um, just wanted to give a shout. You know, there's so much that you said that my head is reeling. I'm like, I should put
I
you
see
on
you
the
nodding. See
I
you
should have
nodding.
put you on the Unstoppable Overcomer show so we have a full hour. Because you what you when you said about your narrow divergence and how you turned that around for that to be a positive instead of
Mhm.
like a negative. My gosh, I could do. Let's do it. We're gonna have to have you
Call
come
me
back.
back. Yes.
You're gonna come back and you're gonna come on the Monday night show. Because tonight I have a full, like, we can only go a half hour. My husband needs my computer. This never happens. Of course, on a night where I could go for like ever. But yeah, we're gonna have to have you come back and talk about that piece because
Sure.
I just it's funny because I just sat down with a gentleman in my community who the first thing he said to me when I sat down with him was that he had ADHD and his brain is all over and he can talk like a mile a minute and things like this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've got pretty much everything that you just said. So does that mean I have ADHD? Like I've been noticing some things and it's for me, I'm just like a bull in the china shop. I just run right through. But then you get to a point in life where when you get older, and I'm not quite 50, but I'm almost there. And I'm starting to slow down a little bit. And it's just like, oh, and I find myself, it takes me a lot to get back into the things that I used to do to just be able to jump into.
Hmm.
And I have so many scroll moments. It's not even funny. So
Yeah.
I would love to have you come back and we'll specifically talk about that on our other show.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
because I
Absolutely.
mean, I know there's more than just the three of us that have this issue. And you know, get into this because instead of making ourselves wrong, what if we just found a way to work within it and use it as part of my French, but use it as our bitch so that we can get further along in life.
Well, a lot of people call it a superpower, and I have to say that, it is a blessing and a curse. And I almost sometimes wish I didn't know what it was because I was doing just fine not knowing. When I finally got a diagnosis, I was a late diagnosed woman in my 30s, and I was actually seeking treatment for my son. So I looked at it like, I've outgrown this, I'm done. And they gave me a sheet. You'll love this. They gave me a sheet like the pros and the cons. This was like UCLA Brain Research Center, super serious. All these research associates, they're like, oh, we're looking for familial, connections. And when we came in, I was just looking for free help for my son, single mom, not wanting to spend a ton of money. And they said, whoa, we think that you tested positive, and could we talk to you for another 4 hours? I'm like, yeah. So they gave me this printout, and I literally folded it in half. I took the pros, I stuck it on my wall. I never turned it over. I never turned that thing over. And I think that was when you hit a wall, it's like it accumulates. So I probably should have. I found the piece of paper and I opened it and stuck it back on my wall. Like, you need to look at the pros and cons of something. It's not just about all the beauty of it, because you really can burn out being someone with ADHD. You hyper focus, you're like a ping pong in a bathtub. And emotional dysregulation is no joke, especially for a woman, because you have hormonal changes in your 50s. So be mindful of that. And that's the only thing I have to say for your audience. And we certainly could talk more about it. And I have friends that are specialists. I will invite them to your show too. They would love to talk to you about it. Yeah.
Oh, let's bring them all on. Let's just
Yes.
do it.
Yes, we'll do a show on
We'll set a
ADHD.
date after the we'll set a date after we're done with this one. But
Sure.
yeah, I would love that. Nessa saying thank you for the show, because apparently, like, that's right up her alley as well. So that's awesome. So getting back to what you do, because this show is all about your business, and so you is the book out already?
The book was released on Veterans Day last year, so it's been out since November. We're coming up on our year anniversary, and my next book will be written and put out self-published, and that is called Unlocking Your Worth. And it really is salary negotiation tips for veterans, because I do see this community, and you know this because you work with them too. You walk into a room with a military uniform on, you know their pay grade because you can see their rank. So their world is devoid of negotiation. There's limited choices, probably for a reason. But when you, again, get into this wild, wild west of a world of civilian work, you have to have good negotiation skills. And I think that, again, it goes back to the same premise. Just like I say in my book, Civilian Mission, which is a 3-year guide for military professionals planning, hopefully in 3 years, planning their civilian career in time to really get through all the exercises. But it really is about personalization. And the one thing I have to say about negotiation is look up negotiation. Everything tells you what you're doing is wrong. And I think that negotiation is very, very attuned to who you are. So your negotiation style is going to be different than mine because of your
Mhm.
experiences and what you want. But it should always be based in what you need. And I think that's something that we always throw out the window. We forget that our family needs a certain thing. We get distracted by the shiny object or the title or the job or the company, and we take that low salary, which in this community is very, very it happens more often than I'd like to see. It
Mhm.
especially happens to the military spouses. They're already facing a huge 21% unemployment. So, again, when we have the transitioning military or veterans who are being underserved, it just adds insult to injury, I think. And
Mhm.
teaching them skills truly to just know what their worth is. That's all. That's all the book is about. I am no Chris Voss from the FBI. I think he's awesome. I want him to write the foreword of my book. But, I'm not walking people off a ledge.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to get people in a bank hold up to put down a gun. I'm literally trying to teach people to figure out what they're worth and be confident in it, because there's nothing sexier. I joke. There's nothing sexier to a recruiter. And I say sexy in a professional way, but there's
Yeah,
nothing better than a confident person coming to the table in a negotiation, knowing what they want. And
right.
that's what I hope to teach. I got goosebumps talking about it. Thank you. Thank you for asking about that.
100%. Well, what keeps going through my mind is these guys, like, they go through buds, or they go through their boot camps or whatever they have. So their SEALs are trained in negotiation. SWAT is trained in negotiation. But in the civilian world, now you got to take that negotiation skills and put it like twist it and put a different spin on it.
Mhm.
You're so used to, like, in survival mode and keeping everybody alive, that they forget about themselves. It's everybody. It's because it's their what's their motto? Putting service above themselves
Yes.
when they sign up. So now they got to take a step back and go, well, wait a minute. Now it's about me. And they
You
have a
you
hard
nailed it.
time switching that. Every
You
veteran I know, as soon as I say thank you for your service, they're like, whoa, like, it's no big deal. Like, step back, right? And th- some of them are like, oh, well, thank you. But they never want to put the spotlight on them, and now they have to. Now they have to switch that around and say, okay, well, what negotiation skills? Because now you're selling yourself in an interview. uh
yes.
yeah, and they don't know how to do that. So thank God for you and
Well,
for what
thank you.
you bring to the table.
For all of us. It's a community. I'm gonna do the same thing they do. It's not about me, it's about we. It's,
There we go.
a lot of us. I think back to all the incredible people that I've learned about over this last almost year in doing the podcast and being in this environment. You learn about subject matter experts, and I bring an expert on for every episode of my podcast, and then 3 veterans, 1 soon to be veteran, and then 2 others. So, and they're all at different stages, by the way. So it kind of gives them the full circle. I do believe that people remember a story more than something they read in a book, even though I wrote a book. But those stories of how they went through their transition, and it's not, I'm telling you, Dorothy, it is not all like, this is what I did and I'm a huge success. It's like, oh no, if I had to do it over, I would do this. Or,
Yeah.
you know, I just put it up to God. A lot of them are like, I just let go and let God. I got that a few times. Or I really relied on my mentor. Or I just realized I was okay failing. But you
Mhm.
talked about something similar. So I talked about this earlier on a podcast, and I got tuned into the Leader Transition Institute. Annie Brock, who was a helicopter pilot and special forces, you speak about special forces. The
Mhm.
Leader Transition Institute is free, and it allows veterans or military affiliated people to go through this program to teach them the leadership skills to take that bridge into, let's say, the civilian workforce. And it's very thorough. It was created by veterans for veterans and military spouses. So I recommend people check that out. And what she says is, in one of her classes is called Going from We to Me. And you talk about, and you know this as a counselor or coach, agency, this lack of agency. And I think that's what's so hard to, you know, when I sat in that gatekeeping role for as a corporate recruiter for a big company, I was really not able to coach. I was not able to really advocate. The only thing they would allow us to advocate for, because we never wanted to underpay people, was the salary. So I'd tell them, hey, we're going to talk about salary. I know that's probably not something you do a lot, but we're going to take as much time as we need, and we'll talk tomorrow if you want to, because I'm not going to represent you to my hiring teams unless you know what you need to live, especially in a Hawaii setting. I was doing Indo-Pacific, maybe it was Singapore or South Korea or Guam or Okinawa, Japan, you know, our locations, even Alaska, those high cost of livings with those challenging geographies, you know, we really had to have a meaty conversation. So I always appreciated the company, because a lot of recruiters don't get that. And they were absolutely imperative. And I'll tell you another reason why, that this company really believed that when you have these highly cleared people, that you are truly putting them at risk when you underpay them.
Mhm.
So they wrote their proposals to make sure everyone was covered. I mean, it was a great learning experience for me. And without that, I would never have learned about this wonderful population, or write a book, or become an advocate, or be on your show. So thanks for letting me chatter on about it.
I love it. You know, there's nothing that lights me up faster than talking about our military or first responder community. I can I can talk about anything and I'm like, yeah, okay. And every time I go to walk away from this community, it's like I get dragged back like
Yeah.
in a suction cup
Yep.
right back to these men and women. Um, you
You
know, a
say,
lot of it.
can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
You bring up first responders, and I really want to pull the thread on that. I've done a lot of pro bono work for firefighters associations, one particular in Southern California, and I learned so much more about first responders, both public safety, you know, law enforcement, firefighters, you name it. And I, you know, my firefighter friends who have retired, I always reach out to them on Veterans Day, even though they're not considered veterans. The paramilitary, our guards, reserves, our public safety people, even the EMS,
Mhm.
those people are going through the trauma every day. You
Yes.
know, when we talk about our soldiers and those who have seen conflict or not, you don't have to have conflict in your background to have experienced trauma.
No.
So, but the folks that are in the front lines,
Yeah.
as you know, in front of civilians right now, especially, you know, just watch any YouTube channel on any, you know, what are they called? The cameras that the law enforcement have to wear. Those channels are very important. Take a few nights to watch a few of those videos and see how people treat, you know, our law enforcement and our firefighters. It's
Yeah.
horrible. And the things they see and they have to process through. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for bringing up our public safety. No one talks about them enough.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. And our show, A Journey in Boots from Trauma to Triumph, we've been highlighting a lot of police officers over there,
Yeah.
still active duty. And the one that's airing tomorrow night, his story gives me goosebumps. He is actually I'm sure everybody's heard of the shooting in, I knew it before I went to go say it. In Florida, there was a shooting where 3 police officers were shot. One was killed
Mm.
on site, and 2 were critically injured. One just came home. This was almost a month ago, and that rocked that sheriff's department, like rocked that sheriff's department. And so we have one of their officers on our show tomorrow night,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
Lieutenant Tim O'Brien, amazing guy. He shares a little bit about what happened because it's still an ongoing investigation. They can't talk a whole lot about it, but the men and women, like you said, that are in it daily, like yes, veterans have my heart, but so do our first responders because they're in it every day. They
Every day.
see it every day. They
Yep.
see domestic abuse, babies in microwaves. It's horrific what they see, and or even getting their partner shot. So yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of trauma there. You know, there's some organizations I just want to bring to the table. The Center for not is it community violence, the prevention of community violence. Bobby Kipper, ex cop, he was a deputy chief, I think, at Newport News. I'm probably sorry, Bobby. I'm probably just strangling the name of your nonprofit, but he just started something through Dr. Gellerman out of Virginia Tech, actively caring for people, and it's a whole new nonprofit that they're standing up, and it's a training center. They're going to have trainers on the ground. I've even looked at their training because I'm a trainer. I'm a professional trainer. But what they're doing is they're going into law enforcement agencies and really, again, it's not about if it's going to happen, it's when, right? And how do we treat our people? And it's not just necessarily about violence. It's about respecting them during the nonviolent time. So actively caring for people is I just wanted to give them a plug because they're doing so much and everybody's volunteer and they're all pointing in the right direction. So thanks
and
for
what was
letting
the
me.
name of his organization?
Actively caring for people, the number 4.
Perfect. I wrote
Yes.
that down. I'll have to do some research and go looking at for
I'll
these
get them
people.
on your show. I'll get them on your
Yes.
show. I'll call
Okay.
them.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
absolutely. You
That
bet.
that's awesome. So where can people get your book?
Sure. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's everywhere. Gosh, everywhere online. Just look up Civilian Mission on Amazon. It'll pull it up. It's now available on Kindle. So if you're Kindle Unlimited, it's free. And it's so funny. Whenever I get a free, like another $100, or if I'm not putting it in my savings account, I'm buying books. So if somebody really, really needs a book and they can't afford it, please reach to me on LinkedIn and I will send one to you, because it's really about getting it in the right hands of people, the right hands, so people can utilize it. It is a guide. It's not a romance novel. There's nothing, even though I use the word sexy, there's nothing sexy about it. My friend Laura Schmiegel of Orion Talent, she said to me, it's like a recipe book. And I don't cook. That's kind of the joke. I only have a kitchen because it came with my house. So I wrote a guidebook that looks like a recipe book on helping you get out of the military and really have a successful career. Hopefully, making good choices so that you have a passion and a purpose, really.
So we need to put this book into the national defense is what I'm hearing, and right on base is what I'm hearing. And so if anybody who's watching this, whether right now or on the replay or 2 years from now, because this will ever be ever on YouTube, um,
Thank
you
you.
know, uh, perhaps you should connect with us and we can get this right on base.
They
All
do
base
have
across the world.
access. Yeah, they do have access through a distribution portal called Ingram Spark. So if anybody from a PX is listening or they're a buyer, absolutely, we're listed. So, and I know there has been some orders because I've seen, smaller orders. I think honestly, information is available online. This is not, even though it hit bestseller on Amazon 5 days after launch, I went bananas. It hit number 1 in the jobs and resume. I'm like, oh, I got my category. It's not a New York Times bestseller. It's a guidebook, and the next one's going to be kind of similar. It's not going to be, Bob went to the store, he had 14 watermelon. Like, it's not, what's the word? What do you call that type of writing? Like, putting it in other people's shoes so you don't have to put it to yourself. This truly is you working on yourself. You're writing things down in the margins. I want this book at the end of 3 years to be torn up, the cover ripped off of it, dog-eared, things stuffed in it, and torn pages because you were reading them somewhere else, stuck in your helmet. I don't care. It is truly there for you to use. And if you can't use it, give it to somebody who can.
And where can people get a hold of you, Cheryl, especially if they need
Sure.
your HR services?
Well, I have recently aligned with a wonderful executive search firm. So I am focusing on executive searches for Hawaii, and I have joined Inkinen Executive Search. It's a firm I've loved for many years living in Hawaii. I love their focus because they're truly focused on the Aina. The Aina is our islands, and they only work with businesses that have a footprint here or who are wanting to bring people here. So I get to have wonderful conversations with executives who want to come home or who really want to stay. The cost of living is quite high. But please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Cheryl, Cheryl Cross. I use my middle initial because there's quite a few Cheryl Crosses out there. So you'll see me, and please reach out to me. I have premium, so you can reach out to me free. And if you have just want to have a mentorship conversation and I have some time, sure. And again, people like Dorothy, I have wonderful resources. If it's not me, I probably know somebody who can help you. So feel free to reach out and give yourself grace for asking for help. That is the one thing. And I know you and I resonate on that. One of the things I think this community needs to do more of is agree to disagree on this one maybe, but you don't ask for help enough. So know that asking for help is a great privilege and honor, and there are so many people that want to help you. You just have to be clear on what your ask is.
100%. I couldn't love that more. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I can't believe it's past the half hour already. We
Thank you.
could probably went for another hour. But to be respectful of your time, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for those that have watched it live, and for those of you on the replay, definitely get a hold of Cheryl. My veteran community, you are going to be inundated with the people that I know in the veteran space. Now that I know that I can connect you, so
Thank
you'll
you.
be very busy, and
What
then
an
you can
honor.
get me. You can get me to Hawaii. How's that?
Oh, okay. We're going to bring you to Hawaii. That was the first thing we talked about.
That's
But
right.
honestly, what a true privilege to be featured. And this is the best way to spend my lunch hour. It's still lunchtime in Hawaii. I told my colleagues today I was going to be on a podcast, and they were all so excited. So again, thank you. And for those of you who do want to reach out, know that it is great to ask for help, and I'm here to serve. So thanks again.
Absolutely. And go get a copy of Civilian Mission. And I will definitely be speaking to different people about your book to get it out there on bases and to get it out into the hands of those that need it, for
Thank you.
sure. All right, guys, it's been another great episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, be unstoppable in all that you do, and join us next week. Bye for now.
Bye now.